أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد, this Ramadan, like every Ramadan, we get about 3,215 messages about Zakat, and it's unfortunate that this great pillar of Islam, the third pillar of Islam, one of the greatest acts of worship, we are so ignorant of. And this is a sign and it's a symptom of a bigger problem with us, and that's our lack of knowledge in Islam in general. And a lack of knowledge in and of itself is not a problem. Ignorance itself is not a problem. What's important is that we know of our ignorance, so we do our best to raise that ignorance off us, so that we learn the religion. And this is a reminder, dear brothers and dear sisters, for after Ramadan. The masajid, alhamdulillah, Masjid As-Salaam is no exception, are full of lessons almost every single day. Different topics, different ages, different languages, different genders. All of it are there, walillahi alhamd. All we need is for people to attend. And they will have no issue, inshallah azza wa jal, implementing the things in their religion, from the major matters like the tahara and the salah and the zakah and the like, or that which is on a higher level, like understanding meanings of the Quran, understanding the journey to the hereafter, the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the like. Not even just online, not even just in the masajid, but also walillahi alhamd, today online is so accessible. And these are things we cannot afford to be complacent on, because these are the first things that we're held accountable with Allah Azza wa Jal on the day of judgment regarding. So please, even though we're going to go through a summarize today, take the seeking of knowledge regarding the Islamic aspect of it very, very, very seriously in Ramadan, and more importantly, to continue after Ramadan. Today, inshallah Azza wa Jal, we're going to go through some of the basic matters regarding Zakat. And we're not going to get into much detail. We're not going to get into difference of opinion. We're not going to get into prolonged discussion. We're just going to give the absolute basics, which, inshallah Azza wa Jal, will answer the vast majority of people's questions. We'll give a little bit of the introduction, then the certain matters from it, and then we'll get into frequently asked questions. And then if anyone has questions after that, we can take them, inshallah Azza wa Jal. Regarding the word zakat, we start. Regarding the word zakat, zakat comes from the word in Arabic which means to purify. The root word linguistically is to purify. And this is important as a concept for us to know that when we are giving zakah, we are purifying our wealth. We are purifying our wealth. We are taking that part that maybe there was some haram in it. Maybe it was earned not 100% correct. Maybe we made some mistakes regarding our wealth. This is a portion of our wealth which is purified. Not only to purify, but also to increase. And this is a concept which we need to understand as Muslims, that when we are dealing with Allah Azza wa Jal, we do not use the same laws that we use in a worldly sense. In a worldly sense, when you give something away, it is gone from you. In an Islamic sense, when you give, you are actually increasing and keeping for yourself, because you are putting the reward forward for you hereafter. So it's truly there for you to keep, and you are putting blessing in your wealth now. So never be scared of giving zakah or giving sadaqah, no matter how big the amount may be. Number two, the general rule regarding zakat is that you have the minimum amount, and that you've had the minimum amount for one whole year. So the zakat types that we're going to talk about will mention what the minimum amount is, and then that you've had it for a whole year. If you've had below the minimum amount, or you've had above the minimum amount but only for 2-3 months, and then it went back below the minimum amount again, then zakah is not due on that person. It's not an obligation on that person, except in one category which we'll mention soon, inshallah Azza wa Jal. Number three, regarding the conditions for the zakat to become an obligation on a person, you have one, that they are Muslim; two, that they have the minimum amount, the nisab, and it's been there for a hawl, for one whole year. And you see there, different to other acts of worship, age is not a factor in zakat. When it comes to praying, for example, for it to be an obligation, the person has to reach the age of puberty. When it comes to fasting, It becomes an obligation only when the person is of the age of puberty. As for zakat, then it is not there. It is about if a person is Muslim and if they have the minimum amount for one whole year. Which means if you have money set aside for your children, for example, you're saving it up for them, and you have the minimum amount, and it's been there for one whole year, you as a guardian need to pay zakat on their behalf. If, for example, a child is an orphan, his father passed away, or maybe both of his parents passed away, and so he's being looked after by a guardian, and he inherited a big amount of money because of his parents passing away, the guardian, pay zakat on behalf of that individual that he's looking after. So it's not about the age or even if they're sane. As long as they're Muslim and they have the wealth there, they need to pay zakat on it. What do you pay zakat on? There are 4 types of things that you pay zakat on. Number 1 is wealth that you have from gold, silver, or cash. Gold, silver, or cash. This is one category of zakat. And when we say cash, we're talking about even that which is in your bank account. Number 2, commodities. That which has been prepared to be sold. If you own, for example, a pharmacy, if you own a fruit shop, if you own a clothes store, whatever it is, you have goods that you sell, these commodities also have zakat that is due on them. And we're going to explain, inshallah, how. Number 3 is livestock. If a person has a lot of livestock, sheep, goats, camels, cows, they also have a minimum amount. If it is reached, then a person needs to pay zakat on it. And number 4 is that which the earth produces. That which the earth produces from things like nuts and certain types of stored foods like sultanas and the like. These also have zakat on it. But the last 2, livestock, we're not going to speak about because not many people here are farmers. And it's not about having 1 or 2 sheep. It's like a minimum of 40 sheep. Okay, so we're talking about bigger numbers. And even with those sheep, you only pay zakat, even with that livestock, you only pay zakat on it if it grazes freely. Not if you feed it yourself. And most people feed it, even if they do have livestock, they feed it themselves. So we're not going to speak about that. And regarding that which the earth produces, we're not going to speak about that either, because you're talking about tons. You're not talking about 5-10 kilos that your wife produces in her backyard the whole year round. No, we're talking about any tons of goods and that which is stored. So we're not going to speak about that one either. We're going to speak about, inshallah, the currency or the wealth that a person has, gold, silver, and cash, and then commodities, as many people have this regarding their businesses. Regarding the gold, if a person has, in Islamic terms, 20 dinars, which is approximately, in our calculations today, 85 grams of pure gold. Okay, the purest form of gold you're going to get today is 24 karat. That's the purest form. So if a person has 85 grams of gold or more, then this is a nisab. This person will have to pay zakat on it. If a person has lesser types of gold, 21 karat, 18 karat, whatever it may be, then you go up to what would be the equivalent of 24 karat. If I'm not mistaken, don't take this as a fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think it goes up to 91 grams for 21 karat. So you just work your way up. This includes a person's silver, which is 200 dirhams, which in our calculations today is 595 grams of silver. So if a person has 595 grams of silver, this also has zakat on it, or the equivalent of that in cash. So if a person has gold and or silver and or cash that goes to the minimum amount, the nisab, then they'll have to pay zakat on it. The minimum amount, in dollars, is you can go off gold or if you go off silver. If you go off gold, it's going to be much more. What do we go off? We go off that which is more beneficial for the poor. And nowadays, because we don't trade in gold and silver, okay, we take the silver because it's much cheaper, which means more people are going to pay zakat, which means more people are going to be recipients of zakat, and the more people will benefit. So the silver is $627 $627.31. This is the latest update from National Zakat Fund here in Australia. Okay, so that means if a person has had $627.31, whether it is in gold, it is in silver, or it is in cash, for a minimum of 1 whole year, then they have to pay zakat. They have to pay zakat. Do you have to have the same money? No, it's just about the amount. So if you started off with 1,000, then 2 months later they went up to 2,000, then 3 months later they went down to 800. Then by the time you got to the end of the year, you have $900. As long as it didn't go below that $627.31, then you have to pay zakat. Then you have to pay zakat. The person, how much zakat does he pay? 2.5% of your wealth, of that which you pay zakat on. 2.5%. So you calculate how much you have from the gold, from the silver, from the cash, and you calculate 2.5% of it. So if you have $1,000, how much are you going to pay zakat? $25. Very cheap. Okay? It's very cheap. That's why the only people that have a problem paying zakat are who? The rich, mashallah. Because everyone else looks at like $25, a Big Mac and a McFlurry on the side is $20. No problem, here's my zakat. But it's when you start getting into the higher amounts, that's when certain people struggle with the zakat, unfortunately. So this is the gold, silver and cash. And regarding jewelry, we're going to speak about inshallah in the frequently asked questions. Okay, we'll speak about that. The second type, commodities. If you have something that you are intending to sell, this is a commodity. So if you have $627.31 worth of commodities, and you've had that or the group of it, and I'll explain what I mean by the group of it, for over a year, then also you pay zakat. What do I mean by the group of it? A lot of people that are buying and selling all the time, they don't have one product sitting there for a year. That's usually rare. What happens a lot of the time though, that they still have to pay zakat, is the money is the same. So I've got $500 and I invest, I'll buy, for example, clothing. And I intend to sell that clothing. I buy it for $500. Now the retail value is $800. So I've reached the nisab. I've reached the nisab. I sell those clothes for $800. Then I get my $800 retail. I invest again. By the end of the year, I'm at $10,000. I bought and sold that. I started off with 500, but I bought and sold. It was already over $800 for a whole year. That same money I worked at, now it's at $10,000. I pay zakat on the $10,000 because it's the same money. It's just grown and grown and grown. Okay? Regarding the commodities, it's the same. It's 2.5%. So you add up how much are your commodities worth, retail value, and you pay zakat 2.5% on that. So if a person has $100,000 worth of stock, then he will have to pay 2.5% of the stock's worth, which is how much? 2,500. Yani, some of you are very bad in maths, mashallah. I heard a 7 somewhere. We're going to explain inshallah and frequently ask questions. Can't call out in class. You're a teacher, Mr. Dresh. The zakat on stock can be paid either cash, it can be given as cash, or the zakat can be paid from the stock itself. So let's say a person sells clothing. Okay? So he's got $100,000 worth of clothing. He can give to a zakatable organization 2.5% worth of the stock that he has, and they distribute it, for example, to the poor people. Okay? It's much harder in Australia for a lot of businesses, but if we were in a Muslim country where they had Al-Maal, this would be much easier. Tayyib. This is nice and simple regarding the gold and the silver. Who is eligible for zakat? There are 8 categories of zakat. Number 1 is the faqir, and number 2 is the miskin. Both of them indicate a poor person. Some of the ulama mentioned that the faqir is someone who does not even have half of his needs. He doesn't even meet half of his needs. So let's say his weekly expenses are $1,000 from rent and food for his kids and things of the like. Let's just say it's $1,000. So he has 499 or less. This is a faqir. He's in a lot of hardship. A miskin is also poor, but he's a person that has either half up to 99% of his needs. So let's say he needs $1,000. He makes, for example, $800 a week. So he just needs that extra $200. These two people that don't meet the amount for their needs, this is faqir and miskin, they are eligible for zakat. The third category that is eligible for zakat is وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا. Those who are working on zakat. Okay? So those that work, for example, in a charity organization, they are collecting the money, distributing the money, doing the paperwork for the money, etc., etc., etc. These people are eligible for zakat. It's very important to note here that not anyone can open up a zakat or a charity and take a wage. That's not how it works. Initially, this is meant to be done by the ruler, the Islamic ruler. He'll put people that are needed for the zakat and they'll get a wage from the zakat. Now that we don't have that, it's not wallah anyone opens up. You need to have people with knowledge that know how this is distributed and make sure that you're even needed to distribute that wealth. Okay? So not just say no one thinks wallah zakat, I can make it a wage. It's not as simple as that. Number 4, wal gharimin. These are not necessarily in order. Wal gharimin are those that are in debt because of need. If someone is in debt because of need, then he is eligible for zakat. Example, someone was gonna be kicked out of his house and he's lost his job, he doesn't have a solid income. So he said, to another Muslim brother or someone, please lend me $10,000, I'll pay you back as soon as I can. I'm just behind on the rent, they're gonna kick me out of my house. So he lent $10,000 because of a need and now he needs to pay it back. If he's struggling to pay it back, then he can be given that $10,000. Okay? Or in other cases, sometimes it's to fix the matters between Muslims. I'm just trying to think of an example that's not from Sydney. Let's say a person, and this is not a common one, but again, it's not a Sydney example. Let's say a person had a car crash. Okay? A person had a car crash and they said, I'll give you a Sydney example. A guy bashed another guy. Okay? Because he's a guy bashed another guy. But because he hit him a little bit too hard, there was actual damage done to the person without right. He overdone it. So the family say, we are going to kill that other guy. But he's gone, he's finished. Okay, we're going to kill him. So now there's going to be blood on people's hands. So a person gets involved to try and do sulh, to try and fix the situation, and he says, listen, I'll give you guys, for example, $50,000, let's drop it. And if they agree, if the person took a debt on himself in order to solve that problem, then they're able to get zakat. So it was about stopping a bigger problem. I couldn't think of any normal examples. Okay? وَالْغَارِمِينَ. Okay? وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبٍ. Those whose hearts you're trying to bring closer to Islam. The ones whose hearts you're trying to bring closer to Islam could be non-Muslims that you want them to enter Islam. Let's say, for example, on the scale of countries, like foreign aid. Okay, let's say we're Australia and we have the government, and the Solomon Islands now it's leaning towards China. So we have Bayt al-Mal al-Muslimin where everyone puts their zakat. We can go to the Solomon Islands and say, oh Solomon Islands, here's $5 billion of zakat money. You stay with us. Okay, so you're bringing their hearts closer to Islam and the Muslims. This is allowed. Or there are certain people that as an encouragement, they're willing to enter Islam, but maybe they just need a little bit more of an encouragement. So you, for example, say, here's $10,000 for your yearly expenses, enter Islam. This is also allowed. Or a person, you want to keep their harm away. Sometimes there may be, let's just say, not so much in Australia, but let's just say as an example, in Australia, we were all tribes, or we were specific states, and there was one state that causes a lot of issues to the Muslims. So you can go and say, listen, we know you guys don't like us, but we'll do like a truce. We'll give you $1 million and you leave the Muslims alone for the next 5 years. So you keep their harm away. These are also people that are eligible for zakat. This on a bigger scale. Okay, majority of the time it's going to be in the fuqara and masakin, but I'm just explaining the type so people know where it can and it can't go. Another type or another category where zakat can go is fi sabilillah. Fi sabilillah, whenever fi sabilillah is mentioned in the Quran and in the Sunnah, it's not talking about khuruj, okay? It's talking about jihad fi sabilillah, yani fighting, okay? So if there was a Muslim army, these people that are going and fighting, volunteering, them, they are able to take from the zakat. We are able to give them from the zakat as a means of support. Underneath that, because it fulfills the same purpose, are those that are in need from the students of knowledge and the people giving da'wah. These are because they're fulfilling the same purpose of i'la' kalimatillah azza wa jal, raising the word of Allah azza wa jal and making Islam apparent. They are able to receive from the zakat if they are in need, or they need that to fulfill their role. The last one is Ibn Sabil. But what's Ibn Sabil? Because we hear it a lot in the Quran, but a lot of people don't know what Ibn Sabil is. Afak, mashallah. Okay, very good, tabarakallah. Ibn Sabil is someone who, because as soon as they hear Ibn, they think, okay, Ibn, like the son of what? Okay, Ibn Sabil is someone who traveled and something happened where they couldn't get back. Let's just say an example. Someone came from Lebanon to Australia. When they came to Australia, they got sick. So they had to go to hospital, and now they missed their flight. And they don't have money, they don't have enough money to buy a ticket back home. So all the hospital says, you have a bill of $3,000. You're not allowed to leave the country until you pay $3,000. And they can't afford it. So they can be given from zakat to pay that bill off, and they bought a ticket in order to get back home. Okay? So this is a person who got somewhere for circumstance, for whatever reason, they couldn't get back, they're able to be given enough to get back. All of these people, what are they given? The general rule is they are given according to their need. So the faqir, the miskin, is given according to his need. The person to get back home is given according to his need. This is the general rule for a person regarding the receiving of zakat. This is the introduction, inshallah. We get to some frequently asked questions. And I hope the beginning part was understood. If there's any questions, please write them down so we can take them at the end, inshallah. First frequently asked question, get asked all the time. Do I pay zakat on jewelry? Do I pay zakat on jewelry? There's difference of opinion. Regarding gold, regarding diamonds, pearls, you don't pay zakat on these things. Okay? But regarding jewelry, by the way, in Islam, jewelry is for women. The men have the silver ring that they wear. As for bracelets and necklaces, these are for women. Earrings, these are all for women. Okay? Islam doesn't allow it for the men. We allow the ring. It's what the Prophet ﷺ wore. As for the other stuff, this is for, and you can wear a watch, and it's not part of the jewelry. The rest is for the women. Tayyib. And gold and silver that women have. If it's actual jewelry, and I hope my words are clear. If it's actual jewelry that they have for the purpose of jewelry, for the purpose of beautification, no issue, inshallah. You don't have to pay zakat on that. This is a possession. And possessions, you don't have to pay zakat on. Okay? If a person has $1 million car that he loves, he drives, he's got a McLaren and he wants to drive it. There's no zakat on it. He's got a mansion that he lives in. He doesn't have to pay zakat on it. These are possessions. You use these. You don't pay zakat on that. As for jewelry that a woman has in order to keep for a rainy day. So she has jewelry. The reason she has the jewelry is not because she wants to wear it. She didn't buy it for jewelry. The reason she has it is because she says, instead of me having $1,000 there that will never go up in value, I'll invest in gold for $1,000 and I'll keep it with me, and every year the value goes up. And when I need to sell it, or if I need to sell it, I sell it. And if you, for the Lebanese, I don't know about other cultures, but when a woman, for example, first gets married, they find the ugliest piece of gold they can find, and they can buy, and they gift it to the woman. It's big, it's fat, it's got nothing to do with something that anyone will ever wear, except maybe Mr. T, okay? But it's just there to sit in the cupboard to go up in value. That's the point of it. Things like that you pay zakat on. Things like that you pay zakat on. Because it's not really jewelry. It's in the form of jewelry, yes. But the purpose behind it is to save your money and for the money to increase. So that type of jewelry, yes, you pay zakat on. I hope that is clear, inshallah. Even if, let's say she bought a necklace that she likes. She bought a necklace, it's worth 100,000 that she likes. Even if she never wears it, because she doesn't, there's no occasion, whatever it is, she never wears it, it's fine, she doesn't have to pay zakat on it. Her intention is, I bought it for me because I like it and I want to wear it for as a possession. She doesn't have to pay zakat on it, even if she never wears it in her life. But this is about the intention of buying or having zakat, or having gold or silver that is just sitting there with the intention of the price to go up and, if needed on a rainy day, to sell. Number 2, commonly asked question: can you give zakat to the masjid? No. Zakat cannot be given to the masjid. You have zakat, which is the obligatory charity, and you have sadaqah. Zakat cannot be given to the masjid. When you see zakat boxes in masajid, this is because the masjid will take it and give it to a charity to spend overseas. Or the masjid itself may know some categories, like the poor people, it may know some categories which it will assist with, inshallah. As for the masjid to use it for the cleaning or buying products or the bills, no, that's not allowed. Okay? Sadaqah is flexible. Sadaqah, you can give sadaqah to anyone and anywhere. Muslim, non-Muslim, dad, mom, brothers, sisters, masjid, everyone. It's flexible, it's not an issue. But zakat can't go to the masjid. Third, frequently asked question: what if someone owes you money? Let's say you have, mashallah, $100,000 in your bank account, and you've lent someone $50,000. So you have to pay zakat on the 100,000, 2.5, and you also have to pay zakat on the money that you've lent the person, because it's still your money. Okay? So you have to pay zakat on that 50,000. A person says, maybe I can't afford it. We say, one, that person can pay it on your behalf. So he owes you 50, he pays 1,250, 1,250 every year, and you just reduce it from the amount that he owes you. Or every year you calculate, let's say he's got the loan for 3 years. So when he gives you back the 50,000, after 3 years, now you owe 1,250 to 500, 750. Okay? I came first in maths in year 9 and year 11, Allah Mabarak, and my teachers didn't believe that I didn't cheat. So after the 3 years, you pay the 3 years worth of zakat when you get the money back. Okay? That if you can't afford it, that's also possible. Someone may ask, I'm never going to lend money. I'm never going to lend anyone money then. Yani if wallah, every time I lend someone money, I'm going to be paying zakat and my money's gone. What's the benefit of that? There is major hasanat in lending people money. The Prophet ﷺ told us that when you lend a person money, it's as if you've given half of it in sadaqah. When you lend someone money, it's as if you've given half of it in sadaqah. So if you lend someone 50,000, it's as if you gave 25,000 in sadaqah. This is big ajr. Okay? Because it's very embarrassing for a person to need money. But a person, he falls into a situation and he doesn't want to fall into haram. So when you're there lending a person money, you're making their life easier. You're entering so much happiness on that person because you've relieved so much of their stress and anxiety that they had. So when you are lending them, Allah Azza wa looks at half of it as sadaqah. So this is a great benefit from lending money. Islamically, it's not recommended to take. As much as you can, don't take sadaqah. Don't take a loan. As much as you can. But as you know, as human beings, we go through situations in life where sometimes you don't have a choice. So try and pay it off as quick as possible. But if you are a person that is able to lend, and in it is great sadaqah. Number 4, what if you have a debt? You owe someone money. If you have a debt that you took out of need, then you reduce that from your amount that you have to pay back. Example, you have $10,000 in your bank account. So at the end of the year, you're meant to pay $250. But you have a debt on your neck where you owe one of your friends, because you were in need of the money, you owe someone $15,000. So you reduce the amount that you owe from the amount that you have. So 10,000 minus 15,000 is minus 5,000, which means you don't have to pay zakat. If you get to 0 or below the nisab, or 0 or below 0, you don't have to pay zakat. Okay, you pay the person back their money. This is not talking about big debts that you have installments. Yani you took a halal loan and you've got 30 years to pay. You don't say, oh, I'm never going to pay zakat because you're always in the red. No. It's talking about a debt that you took out of need. You needed this. You needed to buy a new car, for example. Okay? Because your other car broke down. And so you took that money. So you have a little bit of money, let's say $3,000, but you had to borrow $20,000 to buy a decent family car. So you're going to be minus 17. You don't pay zakat in that instance. You pay the person back their money. Superannuation, number 5. Do I pay zakat on my superannuation? If you have access to your superannuation, 95% of the people say no one has access to their superannuation. The 5% who are very smart, mashallah, and they know what I'm talking about, okay? These people understand if you have access to your superannuation, then you pay zakat on it. If a person doesn't have access to their superannuation because they don't know how to play the system, I'm joking, Facebook Live. If a person doesn't know how to play work the system, okay, and so he's not going to get his money until he retires, which yani, by the time I get to Allahu Alam, will be like 87, okay? When they retire, they pay zakat on the money that they get, okay? They don't pay it as you're doing because you don't have any access to that money. Number 6, can you give zakat to your parents or your children? No. People that you are obliged to look after, you are not allowed to give them zakat, the obligatory charity. Because you have to look after them. That's your responsibility, to look after their needs to the best of your ability. You can give them sadaqah, and it is from the best of sadaqah that you can give. But zakat, the obligatory charity, no, not to your parents, not to your children. Your uncles, your aunties, your brothers and sisters, your cousins, you can give them zakat, and they're the best people to give zakat to, because not only are you fulfilling the obligation of zakat, but you're also keeping the tie of kinship. Okay? Number 7, investment property. If you have an investment property, do you have to pay zakat on it? This also comes into shares, same concept. If you have an investment property, okay, or the same rule we gave with shares, if you're buying and selling the house, that house becomes a commodity, or the shares become a commodity, so you pay zakat on it. For example, okay, you bought the house for 600,000 with the intention of putting it back on the market for $1 million. So you pay zakat on its retail price. Same thing with shares. You say, I'm going to buy, I got inside information somehow. You know Pelosi in America, for those that are politically savvy, tabarakallah. Those aren't, you won't get the joke. If you say, I've got inside information, so I'm going to invest in these shares, I'm going to buy $10,000 for $1 a pop, and after 3-6 months I'm going to sell them because the company is going to skyrocket. They become a commodity, so you pay zakat on those shares. If your intention in buying a house, an investment property, or shares is the return that you get on it from the rent or the dividends, okay, you bought a house, you own the house, and you just intend to rent it out. That's your intention for the house, to rent it out. So the rent that you get, you just add it to your cash. Let's say you rent it out for 30,000 a year, you just add it to the rest of your cash. If at the end of the year you have that 30,000, you pay zakat on that 30,000. If you've used 30,000 of it, you've used all of it, then you don't pay zakat on anything. Just whatever you have left at the end of that year with the rest of your money, you pay zakat on. And same thing with the dividends that come back from shares. Number 9, don't worry about number 9, we'll come back to it inshallah. Number 10, we'll go back to number 9 inshallah. Number 10, are there poor people in Australia? Yes, there are poor people in Australia. Believe it or not, there are poor people in Australia. One of the issues that we have in understanding poor is we look at it in the sense of Africa. We say, okay, there's no one like the poor people in Africa in Australia. Or there's no one like the poor people in Lebanon, like Australia. Correct. But what's the standard for poor? Our standard. The standard for poor is our standard, not their standard. They're not living in Australia and we're not living in Lebanon or Africa or wherever it may be. May Allah alleviate all the affairs of the believers. In Australia, for example, a person has 3 kids. Let's say she's a single mother. she's got 3 children. Is it acceptable in Australia? Is it the average? Okay, the average. Is it acceptable as an average in Australia that a single mother is living in a 1-bedroom studio? It's not acceptable. Okay, so that woman is able to be given zakat according to what is average in society. Yani, for example, she has a 2-bedroom unit, understandable. So if she needs an extra 100, 150 a week in order to fulfill and cover that amount, then she's able to be given from zakat. Okay, so it's about the standard here, not the standard overseas. And obviously that means that at least some of your zakat should stay in Australia. And we'll talk about a place that you can give it to, inshallah. At least some of your zakat should stay in Australia, because when you're helping someone overseas, maybe $100 covers them for the whole month. But when you're talking about Australian needs, that $100 may not even last a person for 1 day, literally. So you need to just be very mindful of how much the need is in Australia. Number 11, what if I've never paid my zakat? Let's say a person, he's 30 years old now, he never knew about this ruling. He's never paid his zakat. You have to go all the way back to as best your memory serves you, and make sure that you pay zakat for every single year. So let's say you're 30 years old now, and you've been working since you're 15. So you say, I guarantee you, since I was 15 years old, I've had the minimum amount every single year. So you need to try your best to think, how much would I have had from when I was 15 to 16? Let's say you would have saved maybe $1,000, okay, 2.5%. Plus, when I was 16 to 17, how much would I have had? Add that. Plus, all the way to now. And you need to give an amount that you're sure would cover your zakat. So let's say you say, I believe if I go back to the time that I've had money up until now, my zakat will be a minimum of $3,000 all up. So you have to give a minimum of $3,000. And if you give more to be safe, that's even better. A person says, I will do that inshallah, but I can't afford to pay that right now. We say no issue, but it's a debt on your neck. So you owe 3,000, you say I can pay 1,000 now, pay 1,000 now, and the 2,000 is now a debt that you have to pay off. Okay? Some other ones which I haven't written down. If you've never paid my zakat, if you paid your zakat wrong. So let's say you say, I paid my zakat every single year, but I thought that the masjid could have zakat. So every year I give 500 to the masjid, I put it in the masjid money box with the intention of zakat. If you pay your zakat to the wrong place, you have to pay it to the right place again. So it's not counted. It's counted as sadaqah. You get rewarded as a flexible charity, open charity, but now you have to pay your zakat, and we don't give refunds. So if you come, even trying to come and pay, no, it doesn't work like that. Okay? Maybe if you make a mistake right away, but don't come to me talking about, wallah, 7 years ago, I donated about 25 grand, it was zakat. Walid Ghash not going to let you do it. Regarding resources, this is number 9 that I left out. If someone wants to talk to someone in a lot of detail regarding resources, then they can go to, there's a charity, they're Sydney based, a National Zakat Fund, NZF. Okay? They're good brothers, inshallah, trustworthy brothers, inshallah. You can go and you can speak to them. People can also apply for zakat through them, in case anyone's in need. But you can talk to them if you have any certain questions. I'm available here, inshallah. But sometimes, if it's about other matters, feel free to talk to them. And also, feel free to give them some of your zakat at least, inshallah. Okay? So that they can fulfill the needs of those who are in need in Australia, inshallah, azza wa jal. These are some of the main frequently asked questions that I get regarding zakat, and some of the main points about the basics of zakat. As I mentioned, there is a lot more to do with zakat, but I hope that what we mentioned suffices the vast majority of us. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله محمد وعلى آله محمد وصحبه أجمعين. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. Any questions, brothers?
So Nancy gives you a tip. You got 80 grand worth of shares. By the end of the year, it's worth 100. You pay the zakat on 100.
That was one of the ones I wanted to write down as I'm thinking. Okay, If you have money, and then you make profits on that money, what do you pay on? You pay on the total amount. You pay on the total amount. So if you, for example, invested in $80,000 at the beginning of the year, Tabarakallah Daniel, and now they're worth $100,000, you pay on the $100,000. It's considered one money. Okay? Also, give me 1 second, I was going to say something right there. Also, if you paid zakat last year, so let's say last year you had 50,000, you paid zakat on it. It's not about the money, it's about the time. You had 50,000 last year, you paid zakat on it. This year you have the exact same $48,250. Okay? Or 750. You also pay zakat on that. You have the exact same money, it hasn't changed. You pay zakat on it every single year. Okay? So it's not about, some people think, okay, I paid on it last year, I don't pay on it this year. There's no new money. No. It doesn't matter when the money came in. If you have that money, in terms of previously, if you have that money, even if you pay zakat on it, you still pay zakat on it the next year. Do you have to pay zakat in Ramadan? No, you don't have to pay zakat in Ramadan. But a lot of people do pay zakat in Ramadan because it's just easier to work out when the year is up. And in Ramadan, obviously, the rewards are more. Any other questions, brothers, before I go to the sisters? Ziyad.
If there's an investment property that you're renting out, let's say for 5 years, and then after 5 years you were intending that in 5 years' time I might sell it, are you going to be paying zakat on both the rent and the total cost?
When you change your intention from it being a rental property to you putting it on the market to sell, then that goes from a rental zakat that you pay, or the zakat on the rent, to it being a commodity you pay on the total price of the house. Regarding, one of the sisters asked, regarding calculating the value of gold, is it calculated on Australian prices or overseas prices? Wherever you are. So it's on Australian prices. It goes off Australian prices. Because you can't look at it as overseas prices. If you were to sell it here in Australia, that's the money that you're going to get. If you were to sell it overseas and it's a cheaper price, that's fine. But your zakat is here where you are. So it's off Australian prices, not overseas price. Even if you bought it overseas, and you brought it to Australia, say in Australia, you bought 10 grams overseas, okay? And you brought it to Australia, how much is that 10 grams worth here? That's what it is. Because if you were to sell it, you're going to sell it here, you're not going to get back to your home country and sell it. Any other questions, brothers? طيب سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وجزاكم الله خيرا.